You ever have a day that starts normal and, before you know it, you're watching a bulldozer rip through everything you've worked for, like your life just got hijacked by some HOA president in yoga pants who's convinced she's the queen of suburbia? Yeah, that happened to me. One minute I'm pulling into my driveway, letting the quiet of these old woods settle my bones after another endless, mind-numbing appointment at the VA. Next minute, there's this diesel engine growling where there should be birdsong, and my heart is thumping so hard I can feel it in my throat. Let me back up a sec. For 20 years, this land was my promise, to my dad, to my late wife, Sarah, and to myself. It's just 20-something acres of trees, the house we fixed up with our own hands, a dogwood tree we planted for our anniversary, the kind of place where you know every stone in the path by the way it turns under your boot. That morning, it wasn't peace I felt. It was vibration deep in the wheel, and then I see it. Yellow bulldozer, carving up my backyard like it's nothing but a patch of dirt on a developer's map. So I walk over, boots heavy in the fresh mud, and there's this kid, hard hat, clipboard, phone in his hand, attitude in his voice. New clubhouse, old timer. Got a problem? Take it up with the HOA. Now, I'm not in their HOA. Never was. Never planned to be. My land's been my family's since my father came home from the war and bought it for what now wouldn't cover a week of groceries. But here's this guy, telling me to talk to the president, and I should have known what was coming next. 10 minutes later, this white SUV rolls up, clean as an operating room. Out steps Karen Whitmore. She's got the logo on her shirt, the expensive sneakers, the look of someone who's never spent a day breaking a sweat in her life. She smiles at me, wide, all teeth, and starts explaining how my property marker is obsolete, how the county says my land is now common area, how their brand new members-only resort is going to be the best thing for property values since indoor plumbing. And all the while, that bulldozer is inching closer to Sarah's tree. I tell her, plain as day, that's my line. That tree, you don't touch it. For a moment, I see she gets it. Then it's gone, replaced by that look people give you when they think you're too old to matter. I'm sorry for your personal attachment, she says, but this is progress. Progress, right. If you've ever loved someone and lost them, you know, there are some things you just don't bulldoze. But she did. By the time I got back inside, hands shaking, my head spinning with anger, I'd made up my mind. I wasn't letting this go. Not for me, and sure as hell not for Sarah. I'm a believer in paperwork, the kind you keep locked away for years and hope you never need. So I dug out everything. The deed my dad signed, the hand-drawn survey from his old army buddy, tax receipts, the works. I made copies, wrote letters, sent certified mail to the board, the county, anyone who'd listen. But all I got in return was the steady drumbeat of engines and saws out back. Then comes a letter, cease and desist. Not from the HOA, but some law firm downtown. They accuse me of trespassing on common ground, harassing contractors, interfering with the community. They flipped the story. Now, I'm the villain. I look out the window, my wife's tree gone. Nothing left but an empty sky and sawdust. That's when I knew this wasn't a mistake. It was theft. It was war. You know what I mean? When someone takes what's yours and then has the nerve to act like you're the problem. That cold, sharp anger, it doesn't just sit there. It makes you move. So I did. First stop, county records. Those places never change. Old paper, buzzing lights, the smell of dust and regret. I hand over my proof, ask about my land, and the clerk just shrugs, points to a computer screen, boundary adjustment. HOA filed 2 years ago. Notice was undeliverable, so they annexed it as abandoned. Bureaucratic gaslighting at its finest. I wanted to scream, but all I could do was drive home through streets lined with signs for future home of the Summit Club. Neighbors I'd helped with busted mowers last summer wouldn't meet my eyes. A guy I know corners me at the hardware store, shuffles his feet, says, "Sorry, Jack, but this place will boost all our home values." The whispers started, old man, confused, probably losing it. They weren't just taking my land. They were taking my sanity, too. That's when I set up my folding chair at the edge of the site, just watching. Not a protest, not exactly. A vigil. The workers started getting jumpy, but I didn't care. This was the only way I knew how to hold on. After a week, I realized they played a different game, rules I didn't know existed. So I stopped fighting the way they expected. dug deeper into my father's files. That's where I found it. A mineral rights and surface estate agreement, old and brittle, signed decades ago. Surface rights in perpetuity. Turns out, my dad bought more than just dirt. He bought what was underneath it, too, and the HOA had never checked. They built a house of cards on my foundation. That changed everything. With help from a title specialist, quiet guy, office above a bakery, I learned the mineral rights trumped the new survey. It was like owning the engine to the car they just stole. I formed an LLC, hired a sharp land use attorney named David Chun, called in a favor from a Navy buddy, the kind of guy who finds weaknesses in anything, bridges or people, and, through a twist of fate, bought the land under the HOA office itself. Suddenly, the trespasser was now the landlord. Our first letter to the HOA was almost friendly, offering to lease them the land for $1 a year. They ignored it. So we went on offense. My LLC officially owned their office. When they kept using it, we filed trespass charges. Meanwhile, my friend the engineer found something else, an old utility easement right under their fancy new resort, and their foundation was a disaster waiting to happen. We filed formal notices with the county, notified the insurance carrier, and the work site screeched to a halt. Suddenly, Karen's empire was built on sand. Karen struck back with everything she had, even tried to get Adult Protective Services to declare me incompetent. But when the grand opening gala came, I showed up in my dress blues, with my lawyer, 2 surveyors, and a reporter in tow. Karen's speech about progress and community was interrupted by a county inspector, red notice in hand, code violations read out for everyone to hear. My attorney presented the original plat maps, live survey confirmation, and, thanks to a secret recording, played Karen's own voice admitting the fraud. Neighbors who'd ignored me turned on her in a heartbeat. "You tore up his wife's garden." Jim Miller, the guy whose mower I fixed, shouted it out. The crowd erupted, the city officials scattered, and Karen stormed out, humiliated. The news that night called it land theft scandal. The board resigned. Karen quit, tried to disappear before the lawsuits caught up. When the dust settled, their lawyer offered to give the land back, pay a settlement, demolish the resort. But justice isn't a reset button. Instead, my LLC demanded they finish the project, safely, up to code, on their dime, and then hand over the keys. That's exactly what happened. The HOA's crown jewel, built with their own money, was now mine. We renamed it the Harrison Woods Community Center, opened it up to everyone. No more exclusive pool parties, no more bullies, just a place for neighbors to be neighbors. The money it generated went to a legal fund for veterans fighting battles like mine. I planted a new dogwood where Sarah's tree once stood, tiny, but it'll grow. And the land, after all the noise and chaos, is quiet again. Kids play, neighbors smile, and even the grass seems greener these days. And as for Karen, I watched her move out, alone, head down, no one coming to say goodbye. The queen of nothing, finally gone. You know, I sit on my porch now, coffee in hand, gravel still crunching under my truck like it always has, and I realize what I fought for wasn't revenge. It was peace. It was the promise of this place. And if you're watching this and you've ever had something stolen by someone who thought they could get away with it, don't just get mad. Get to work. The system's rigged, sure, but sometimes, with a little luck and a lot of stubbornness, you can tip the scales. So, where are you watching from? Drop your story in the comments. Tell me, what would you have done? Is there such a thing as justice in neighborhoods like ours? Or do we have to make our own? If you believe nobody should be bullied off their land, hit subscribe. You're not going to want to miss what comes next. Because, in the end, this land, my land, is mine again. And that's all I ever wanted.